Missing in Action, a mini-series on the Haves and Have-Not review channel about missing characters from the series. Where are they? Were they canceled out? Were they written off the show completely? Will they ever return? This time we're talking about Michael, the grandfather of little Lizzie and a potential love interest for Hannah Young. Now, the last time we saw Michael was when Candace was plotting with Benny. Benny really wasn't in on the plot. Candace was just kind of revving him up in terms of, you know what? Why don't you sue the Criers for the hit and run incident? And then by doing so, she, I guess you could say, got Michael in on the plan. Again, Michael was pretty much as blind to the situation as Benny was, because while Benny and Michael thought it was justice, it turns out this was just a ploy by Candace to get back at Jim and his family by extorting more money from him. Hannah walked into Candace's house and saw Michael there, Benny there, Candace, and then like an attorney that she was going to get to help him out. Remember that Benny didn't want to do this. It took a lot of, I guess you could say, smooth talking. And if I'm not mistaken, Benny didn't even want to go into the attorney's office in order to talk about this. But after explaining the situation and realizing how much money would have come from the deal, Benny was like, you know what, fine, whatever. And if I'm not mistaken, he even just agreed to meet up with Michael. Well, actually, he just decided to meet up with him just to talk, not to agree on anything, but just to talk. And then when he saw Michael, it was incredibly awkward because remember, the last time Benny saw Michael, Hannah and Michael were getting it on. So, hey, awkward situation in itself. So with that being said, Michael apologized because after Hannah walked in on the situation, she's like, you know what, this is just a ploy of you to get more money from these people. And Michael's like, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't know what was going on with this, in terms of he didn't know that this was some kind of revenge plot, so to speak. He just wanted justice for, his granddaughter being killed, and rightfully so, in terms of, getting justice for the situation. He was literally shaking hands and walking in a march with the father of the man that hit his granddaughter. I believe it was March for Justice back in season 2, where when Wyatt Crier, his face was sketched by the police, and they were on the hunt for this guy in terms of, look, enough people are killed in this community without anybody doing anything, so we're going to have a march about it. Maggie was the one that convinced David and Jim, like, look, you're running for governor. Well, you haven't made the announcement yet, so it will look good for you to, feel like you are involved with the community as a whole. So it was incredibly awkward for Michael to be talking and shaking hands with the father of the man who not only killed his granddaughter, but also shaking hands with the man who was covering up his son's actions. So, wow. It's crazy to think about how simple the show was back during the first 2 or 3 seasons, but how good it was because it felt so, like you can really be invested in the characters before things blew up in terms of the stakes being ridiculously high. A very, very large number of new characters who showed up but really didn't offer the kind of quality to the show that Charles or Celine or Byron would. Again, that's just my opinion. Now, the reason I want Michael to come back, and again, a lot of fans even said that, after Quincy, drove the car into Hannah's house and caused it to burn to ashes, that Michael should show up again and like build her a new house. And remember I'll never forget the funniest meme I saw was, hey, Hannah, you want me to cut your lawn? Remember when Benny was in the coma in the hospital, he said, hey, I came over to cut your yard because I noticed that, the grass was growing up and I didn't want people talking about you thinking like, hey, this woman doesn't take care of her yard. And she said, I appreciate it, but don't do it again because Benny doesn't like anybody to cut the yard but him. So I thought that was pretty funny. And again, it was just a nice touch to show that, Hannah was potentially being written in to have a love interest, which, just like Benny, I feel like she really needs a, love interest in terms of give her something to do aside from, looking at other people and not really taking care of her own home. A lot of fans have said that. Not to mention, Michael seems to be a nice guy. And, okay, kind of skipping ahead here because I will be kind of jumping around with Michael. I feel like, usually I say this part for the end of the video, I feel like one of the best times for Michael to come back would be within the next season, basically during the Quincy Jr. funeral. Oh, wow. Sorry, I have no idea how that got tongue twisted. The Quincy Jr. funeral. However, due to the fact that Candace wants to have him cremated, I don't know if that will happen. Remember that at the point where Candace came to the funeral home, Hanna and Benny were literally putting in the final details in terms of the casket, the announcements, the obituary, all those things. So it wouldn't surprise me if Michael would have shown up to the funeral. And by doing so, and again, this isn't me saying that, oh my God, he's going to take advantage of Hanna due to the death of a grandson. No. The reason I want Michael to come back is because not only would it give Hanna a solid love interest, but also the fact that those two can grieve together because they both went through similar situations, losing a grandchild that they haven't really interacted with that much. I guess you could say that Michael probably had more time with little Lizzie than Hanna had with Quincy Jr. because if I'm not mistaken, she had, well, I wouldn't even call it custody, but more like Candace just left the baby and ran off for the first couple of years of his life. If I'm not mistaken, that Hanna was the one taking care of Quincy from the time he was born until he was about 2 or 3 years old. Candace showed up, took the baby, left. Next thing you know, never saw him again until Quincy had him dangling upside down in front of her window. So with that being said, I can think that Michael probably took the hand of being grandfather as well as a father to little Lizzie while his daughter was out there getting high on drugs, kind of like Candace out here, you know, being a prostitute and conning people. So that tells me right there that Michael and Hanna both love their grandchildren with all of their hearts. Not to say that they didn't care about their daughters. Ironically enough, you know, Candace and then little Lizzie's mother, which her name escapes me because she was only in a couple episodes. And I'm really thinking that even though I believe the saying is, and again, this is just a saying I've heard, you know, parents seem to, I guess you could say, treat their grandchildren better than their own children because they make up for the mistakes they made with their child. Basically, they do to their grandchildren and spoil them unlike they did their child. I don't know. That's what some people have said. It makes some sense, but I'm just saying that it would make sense for Michael to come back and help Hanna through this tough time because he isn't a Catherine saying that, you know, hey, I've lost a child, which she has, but I feel like there's a difference between losing a child and a grandchild. I'm just kind of, you know, I'm only 26, no kids of my own. I'm not married, don't have a wife or anything, but, you know, based off what I've seen as well as what the show's portraying, that is true. That there's a difference between losing a child and a grandchild. So I feel like Catherine has definitely been a solid rock for Hanna, which is great. But I feel that Michael has something she doesn't, being the fact that, look, I've lost a grandchild myself, so I can definitely help you through this time. The question is, would Hanna accept the help? Because remember how, and again, this is not me talking bad about Hanna because she did, well, Crystal did one heck of a performance with her after Quincy Jr. was killed. She literally didn't want to have anything to do with anybody in terms of, you know, trying to cheer her up, even praying to God. But I feel like instead of the tough love Catherine was giving her, but again, Catherine said exactly what we've been saying the entire show. Like, look, it's good that Hannah's independent and doesn't want to accept help unless she feels that it's truly been, you know, a blessing from God. But Catherine literally spelled out that, look, accept this help from me, because sometimes I feel like you're missing out on the blessings from God through me. And just let it, you know, because you pray, you help out other people. But when the blessing is in front of your face, you literally don't accept it. I believe that's when she said she was going to, you know, help her out with a house or something like that. And I believe even saying that she would help pay for the funeral, but she didn't want to accept that. So Catherine literally gave her the tough love to open her eyes, which was beautiful. But in terms of like being somebody who can relate to her situation, as well as being in a caring way, I feel Michael should return to help out Hanna. One of the biggest thing, and again, this wasn't me wishing anything bad on Hanna, but remember during the beginning of season 3, after, you know, the whole shooting of Amanda and whatnot, and Jim being taken by Warlock and his crew, remember that Hanna was throwing, like, you know, a welcome home party for Benny at her house because he had just come out of the hospital. You know, Candace was there on the stoop because she didn't have anywhere to go for the time being. Benny was there too. Everybody was having a good time. Then, you know, Michael had been drinking a bit, and those two were dancing, having fun. And before even that, before they were dancing, you know, Michael was there sipping on a beer, but he was looking pretty depressed because remember, he was still mourning the death of little Lizzie. I mean, that was his grandchild, but at the same time, he wanted to show support for, you know, at least, hey, even though my daughter and your, my granddaughter and your son were both hit by the same guy, at least one of them was able to come home. So he was there to help her celebrate. But, you know, Hanna, and again, this was one of my pinnacle Hanna moments. And again, this is something a lot of people don't even think about, but, you know, let me know if you thought the same way. It was sweet for Hanna to say, well, to try to cheer him up in terms like, hey, you know what, try to smile, try to have a good time, you know, no more tears. I thought that was really, I took that one of two ways. Number one, it was great that she was trying to help Michael cheer up because he lost his granddaughter. It's like, look, as Michael, you know, Michael was there to show support because true, even though he lost his granddaughter, at least Hanna didn't lose her son. She was close, but didn't. And I always thought to myself, and again, this is like early season 3. So, and again, this wasn't me like overthinking in terms of, you know, like Quincy Jr., because I was really just thinking about the fact that Hanna's in Michael's face trying to cheer him up, saying no more tears, have a good time. It's a celebration. My question was, if the roles were reversed, if she was the one to lose her grandchild, or let's say, or even, I guess you could say, flip the script. Let's say Benny was the one that died, but little Lizzie survived, and then Michael was having a welcome home celebration, and Hanna showed up, basically filling the role that Michael had to her. Would she be able to cheer up? Would she even show up to the party? Would she even try to have a good time? That was my question. I've always thought that, you know, in terms of, you know, if the roles were reversed, would Hanna be the one to willingly accept, you know, the help, not money or anything, but emotionally trying to get through this situation? I've always thought that. So I feel like this would be a perfect time for Michael to show up, in terms of, it would be a great way to not rewrite his character, but to work him back into the show. I feel like this would be a perfect time, not only to give Hanna a love interest, but maybe a stable home. I mean, honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if, you know, they live together, or heck, you know, if Catherine gives Hanna a house, those two move in together. And I don't know, maybe, I don't know what would happen to his daughter though. Maybe she turned her life around after the little Lizzie situation. I really don't know. But I remember that there's a lot to say about Hanna in terms of having a love. Again, I feel like it wouldn't even be a forced romance, so to speak, like the whole Benny and Veronica where that just came out of nowhere. I feel like this would definitely make sense in terms of character development, the overall plot, the fact that these two have a lot in common, and Michael's a good man. And I'm going to cut this video off because really there's not much I can say here that I haven't already said before. I mean, in some ways I feel like this video might have been, you know, just regurgitating the same information over and over, but I'm going to be honest here, it really isn't about so much Michael's character in terms of Michael as not a plot device either. The fact that he was a well-written character, in my opinion, who actually should be brought back to the show instead of people like, you know, Charles or, you know, Landon or whatever. Not to say I dislike those characters, but I just feel like, you know, I feel like the stakes are way too high for a show that was really grounded on, you know, neighborhood issues, if you will, you know, like people who get in hit and run, do drugs, crooked politicians, if you will. Honestly, I feel like Michael was one of the best characters who was introduced to the show. I'm just, you know, kind of upset that he hasn't shown up for a while. So with that being said, this video is going to come to a close because I feel like there's more about Michael I'm going to talk about in my next missing in action video. And again, I want to say his name now, Byron. Do you remember him? If not, I do not fault you whatsoever. The last time we saw him in a prominent role was season 2, but the last time he actually was on the screen was in the same episode I was talking about during the last half of this video in regards to, you know, Michael at Benny's welcome home party. So please subscribe if you haven't done so already. Let me know your thoughts on Michael. Should he come back? Should he be Hanna's love interest? Do they have a lot in common? And let me know if there are any other characters who have been missing in action, but you haven't, you know, seen them on the screen. You want to know where they are, because I'm going to be honest here. So far, I've done Celine, I've done Tony. This is about Michael, and on my list, Byron is the last one, and those are only 4. But let me know, is there any other character who we haven't seen in quite some time, but you want me to do a video on them. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll talk to you in the next video.